I say, kept us busy. And any other thing you want to?
Can you describe a combat experience?
Well, we didn't really have what you would call combat. We'd pick up the wounded where they had brought them and put them aboard the planes, and I would go with them from there back to the hospital in right out of Los Angeles. But actually, combat, I did not have, you know.
You didn't have much of that.
We weren't required, didn't need, you know, that wasn't part of my job.
Okay. Can you describe one of your frightening experiences?
Well, that's like I say,
Like that.
it was going there and picking up the wounded and then carrying them. I went with them to the hospital, and then they were unloaded, and then most time we didn't go back into Pearl Harbor most time, or Guam. I'm going to tell you about a Guam experience. I was there. Remember they had the hurricane the other day? I was on Guam when one hit. At that time, Guam was they had a building, the highest building was two stories higher. And we got up in the second floor, that's where we slept. And the water come right up to our shoe tops where we were sleeping. And it was not pleasant, but you could we did get by. At that time, we had about 60 men there in Guam. And then the trains had there, and then I knew several men that were in the same squadron that was in. Danny Simmons right over here. Danny was in that squadron later on. Billy Devers that lived out below down here. And I run into one or two coming back. They were coming back for discharge after they'd got their enlistment up.
Can you describe a time when there was some joy and relief from the conflict?
Well, I was going to be able to get home.
That was your joy?
You know it wasn't direct, because I hadn't been home, like I say, in 37 months. And so I hadn't seen my parents. I've been able to write to them, but there was 4 of us in service at that time. I had one brother that was a helicopter repairman. He was died from Agent Orange exposure. They never would say he did, but that's what he's buried down here. He'd been already retired out of the Air Force.
How did the men around you feel? Were they scared, worried, stressed?
Ma'am?
How did the men around you feel?
Well, most of them were like me. We were trying to do a job, and the best we could with what we had. And I didn't lack, well, I don't need to get into this, but at a time, we had a desire to win. Then politics, we got into it. There were involved, didn't want to win. It was even back then, and that was 1950, 53. They more or less settled the war. That's when politics got into it.
Oh, yes, sir. Describe a time when you were scared.
Well, at a time during
During that time.
that hurricane, and the time flying from here to Dallas, and well, after we swapped over, I really didn't realize the significance of what was happening until it was done over with.
How did the Korean conflict change you when you got home?
Well, it really did not change me as such, because I got home and I got back in the military and stayed up. I ended up staying 41 years in the military, and I finally retired in 1994. Yeah.
Did you ever have a post-traumatic syndrome?
Oh, wow.
You didn't know? Did you feel worried whenever you got back home?
Well, I did not have, not having the actual combat like so many of them had, I did not feel worried as such, and it didn't enter into my mind that the things that could happen, and some of them are still happening, and I went on in and stayed in and made a career out of
What would you hope my generation would learn about this war?
it. Well, I would hope that they would look back and say, we need to go ahead and have an idea that we need to be prepared and work with other countries to keep peace rather than trying to get involved and not let things get out of hand look like it's happening now.
What would you hope my generation would learn from this war?
Well, that we need to be prepared to keep peace as well as we can be done through working with other countries, our allies, and all.
Well, I want to thank you for letting me come and interview you. Thank you for letting me come to your home. And then thank you for doing this for the war, and thank you for being a part of it.
Well, back then, everyone got in, his granddaddy went in with, and I would have went in with him, but I got in the Navy. My dad wanted me to join the Navy, and I did. And everyone got in, either got drafted or some branch of service at that time. And it was a good occupation. And it is still a good occupation. You get some good schooling through the military at this time, and they working things out, and I hope that the younger generation will keep on and look and say, we need to be prepared for something we hope don't happen. And go from there.